Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I am Jen Bordeaux coming to you with another segment of Family Law Uncorked, and I'm joined today by the illustrious Sarah Hink, attorney and partner at New Direction Family Law. Good morning, Sarah.
Morning, Jen. Hope you're doing well.
I am. Got a little bit of taste of sun, and now we're back to dreary, but that's okay. We'll make it through. We're going to make it. March is around the corner.
We're wearing our black today.
Yep.
Feeling the clouds.
Mourning the loss of the sun that we had earlier. All right, so today's topic, we recently posted about what people thought was their number one reason for people separating or getting a divorce. And the reality is that there are a lot of reasons. Sure, we see common themes, but everybody's situation is unique. There might not be one clear-cut reason. It may be several different ones. But one of the ones that does come up a lot is infidelity in affairs. So that's what we wanted to talk about today, because there are legalities to that, ramifications, good things to do, good things not to do on both sides of the spectrum, for both those that have found or suspect, think that affairs happening. Can't speak today, apparently.
Friday.
As well as those that maybe are the ones that are having the affair. So good for both sides to know. We represent both because everyone needs to know their rights and ways to work through everything. So with that, we'll get started. So because we get calls all the time for people that they either think they found text messages, Facebook messages, and we just did a podcast about social media and divorce as well that has a lot of good little nuggets in there. But they feel that their spouse is cheating, or maybe they have discovered through pictures or whatnot, or even a private investigator. So maybe you don't have concrete evidence, but you have a strong suspicion that an affair is happening. From your perspective, or what advice would you give someone in those shoes?
Well, a lot of people, it just starts with some kind of, feeling. Some people just have a gut feeling that their spouse is cheating on them. We all know the typical signs is, someone's losing a lot of weight all of a sudden, they're spending more time out of the house, they're not really telling you where they're going, or, they're just saying there's all of a sudden work is taking up all this time. It's a little harder these days because a lot of people are working from home. So I'm interested to start hearing about what the new signs are for people having affairs during these times when people are home much more often. But typically we advise that you don't just go confront them and blow everything out of the water, because a lot of times they just deny it, first of all. Second of all, they might just step back for a while, but still have interest in the affair and still continue it. And you then just let it go and don't really pursue it after they denied it. I would suggest that you reach out if you really think that something is happening. Reach out to either a private investigator to gather more evidence, or a divorce attorney, just to have a discussion about what you would need, or what that looks like. And if you go to a private investigator first, they oftentimes will advise you to go speak to a divorce attorney, and vice versa. If you need to find a little bit more evidence and look into maybe having someone trail them and find out where they're going, or take pictures of them. Also, we can give you advice on how to kind of snoop around those text messages while you're still living together and everything's legal in that realm. Also advise you on what actual divorce looks like if you were to pursue that. A lot of times people that find out about an affair, they don't break up. They don't end it automatically. They go to counseling. But it's still, I think, powerful to know your rights going into counseling while you're working on your relationship, and also knowing, what it looks like on the other end. So if you decide, mentally that you want to separate, but you're scared of financial reasons to stay together, or the kids, have a picture of what that looks like, so you're not feeling like you're trapped in making this relationship work if there's been an affair and you don't trust the other person anymore. You don't have to suffer through that out of fear over finances or child custody issues.
Okay. And you mentioned different ways that you find out, and one of those being, maybe contacting a private investigator and letting them do their thing. Mm-hmm. But sometimes people also come to you in consultations that have found out information, but sometimes you can't use that information if need be later on. So kind of like accessing accounts and stuff. So can you talk a little bit about that, about just because you access it doesn't mean that an attorney can use it?
And it kind of depends. So, if you're still married, you're living together, the passwords, you have the same internet access, and perhaps you have an iPad where everyone's iCloud information goes to, you can definitely use that. If there's a third party on the other end, you might have to get the other third party to testify about things that they said in those communications. But Otherwise, just looking at your spouse's communication to a third party, saying, I love you, I want to have sex with you. I mean, you can use that in court. But otherwise, how things are obtained outside of the home, that may cause it into question. But definitely, anything you have, go over with your attorney, and your attorney will let you know if you need to subpoena more information, hire a private investigator, or what you need to do to further that information. Also note, if you have all this information, and even if it's not 100% all of it admissible in court, just having it and letting the other side's attorney know that you have it, that will give you a little bit of leverage in negotiating a settlement. So just because you're having an affair or someone else is having an affair relationship doesn't mean you go to court and you just blast it all over the courthouse. You can still use that information to get a good settlement and really work for the best interest of your family and your kids, because you don't want a nasty, drawn out court case with a bunch of affairs being blown out of, everyone's pictures and text messages, and that's going to cause a lot of disruption as far as co-parenting goes. So lots of different avenues to take.
Okay. So good things to do is gather that evidence, speak to an attorney, maybe speak to a private investigator. So what's something good not to do if you find out or you discover this or suspect, I don't know, like light things on fire?
Yeah, that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to just blow things up. You don't want to confront them. You don't want to get angry. You don't want to lash out violently. Probably the urge is there to do so, just like all the pop music songs about taking a baseball bat to the windshield there. Don't do it. That's not good. It's going to backfire. They might go out and file a DVPO against you, and then while you're emotionally hurting about an affair taking place, they're saying that you're violent and you can't be around the kids. So it's really important to control those emotions, even how upset, angry you are. Go seek mental health counseling to help you through this. Like, what is a traumatic experience? You also don't want to go blast them on social media about the affair, even though you want to, but that doesn't usually look very good in court either. It's more about really compartmentalizing these areas. So you have your emotions and your feelings, which are 100% valid. Take care of that with a counselor. Go see an attorney about the other issues if you're going to end up separating, and financial issues, how the affair is going to affect possibly alimony. Some cases it doesn't affect it at all because there's just not any money. And our statute says there shall be alimony, but that's going to be like $1. And how much are you going to spend on your attorney fees arguing over money that's just not there? So there's just a lot of facets that this affects, and you need to talk about with an attorney.
Okay. And sometimes I think one part of this that can be really hard, again, going back to what you mentioned about emotions, your emotions are heightened, you feel hurt, betrayed, you're questioning things about yourself, your self-esteem is hurt, like all those kinds of stuff. And so sometimes you want to lash out in any way possible. And I think sometimes people want to do that, unfortunately, with their kids, and they make the kids like the rope in a tug of war. So, I mean, does a mom or a dad having an affair affect custody?
Generally, it does not. So it's going to affect the co-parenting. That's what you were talking about when they're using the kids. And I see that a lot, which is really unfortunate. And a judge might scold them, but it goes back to how we kind of start at 50-50 in our court cases now, at least the judges do. And even if someone can be a bad parent and had the affair, if they're, or not a bad parent, but a bad spouse and had the affair, if they're not a bad parent, they're still a good parent. A lot of them are. I have clients who say, yeah, he sucks as a husband, but he's actually a really good dad and he loves the kids. That's not going to affect custody at all that he had an affair. They're most likely still going to get 50-50. Then the spouse that's hurt, if they are causing issues co-parenting, or they are saying nasty things about the other parent to the kids, that may affect custody. It's hard to really get that evidence in if it's just coming through the way of the kid. If the kid's saying, mom was saying this about you, dad, then then you have to get the kid involved. Anyways, it can kind of affect the co-parenting and make things difficult, but it doesn't really have a huge effect on custody otherwise, just because the fact that it happened. If mom was having an affair with a different man every other week, and now mom's seeing these different men, bring them around the child every day, then that's a little different. That just goes into mom not making good decisions about who she's introducing to the child and how often. But otherwise, an affair is just between the parents. It's an issue with the marriage and not related to the custody.
Got it. All good advice on things to do and not to do. So now let's switch focus. to if you are the person that is having the affair. I mean, it happens a lot, and those that engage in infidelity or affairs, there's several different reasons that happens.
Yeah.
And we did a great podcast with Dr. Susan Ornstein about that, the emotional fallout of affair, where we talk about why people cheat, if you can bounce back from that. So shameless plug, go check out the exit strategy to learn more about that. So if you are the one that's engaging in infidelity, and whether you have been caught or have not been caught, let's start with, I mean, obviously we know probably you shouldn't have done this to begin with, but here you are, can't take it back, can't change it. So if you are in that position, what should you not do? Because I know that all you guys there have stories where, because we represent clients on both sides of that, of course. And there's definitely some things to stay away from, to not do if you're that person. So what advice would you give to the cheaters out there to not do?
Well, I mean, cheating is dumb, and so these people do a lot of dumb things, quite honestly.
Keeping it real, I love it.
Yeah, and it's hard because I feel like a lot of times they get wrapped up in this world where they feel like it's just them and their lover, and like that's the only thing that matters. But you step back from it if you allow yourself to do that, and you're like, okay, there's more to this than just this relationship with this person outside of my marriage. There's other issues there. So if you start having that feeling, first best advice is to step away from that relationship and take your responsibility seriously. Your spouse, go to counseling or have a conversation with them if you really don't want to be in that relationship and married anymore. Think about how this is going to affect your kids. Obviously, like we just talked about, you having the relationship won't affect custody, but it's going to affect them emotionally regardless, knowing that this happened. And the mom or the dad that's not having the affair is going to be hurt, and that's going to trickle down to the kid as well. So just try to, if you can, not be dumb about it and be smart and say, I shouldn't do this. Or if you've already started on it, take a step back and really just address your marriage first. And if you can't do that, then, don't go telling people that you're having an affair. I know you want to tell someone, you're probably like, I'm in love with this person. There's some great.
It seems like common sense, right? Like, don't go, yelling from the rooftops, but common sense is
common. Don't go tell your friend. Don't go tell, your adult child. Like, don't do it. And if you feel the urge to tell people, that's probably a good indication that it's time to, again, stop and separate from your spouse before engaging further down this road. Don't put things in writing. Anything you put in writing is going to show up in court, or can show up in court, and you can do discovery and find it. Go down the road of someone taking your computer and looking for old files, and taking your phone and scanning that for old information. You think it disappears, but it really, quite honestly, doesn't. There are certain messages that are harder to find, like if you use Signal app, or what's the other one? Snapchat is harder to get to, but there's ones that are harder to trace. Obviously, text messages is very easy, so avoid that if you must communicate with this person not in a relationship. But just be smart about it. But like I said, cheating is not a smart decision, so oftentimes there's going to be mistakes, and there's going to, they can hire a PI, they can follow you to that parking lot and take pictures of you making out with your paramour in the car. We understand that a lot of these things happen at work with coworkers, so I guess a lot of affairs might be put on hold now since we're not everyone in office, which is probably a good thing. But also think about how that's going to affect your work, and how if your boss found out, how that might have ramifications with your career as well. So best to also go talk to a therapist, find out why you're doing this. Maybe it is true love, and this person's not you're not married to your true love, sure, but you need to be mature about it and take care of your responsibilities. Otherwise, it could really come back and hurt you in the long run, financially, emotionally, with your family. Not even just your kids, but also your other family members might get hurt by this as well. And regardless of the age of your children, it's going to have an effect.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes I think people think, okay, well, this has happened and I recognize that I shouldn't have done this, but now I'm separated from my spouse. So that's all said and done, like no big deal. But that kind of has a ripple effect, right? Or it can, at least. I mean, I know everything depends, but even after you separate, I mean, some of that stuff, I mean, it can be used against you, so to speak, for the cases of alimony or, other things. So definitely talking to an attorney. If that has happened, whether you've decided that you're going to stay and work on the marriage or separate, or that this new person is the love of your life and you're just going to ride off into the sunset, I mean, definitely still talk to an attorney, because you need to be prepared and aware of all of the ways that doing that may affect you legally with your separation, as well as all the other emotional, mental, financial pieces to it as well.
And you think you got away with the affair during the marriage, and your spouse has no idea. You haven't even told your attorney. You should tell your attorney everything. And that's when we're going to advise you, okay, well, no one knows about this. Let's just keep it that way. Don't turn around and immediately after you separate, start seeing this person publicly. Because like you mentioned, we can use that evidence of any post-separation relationships to corroborate allegations of an affair during the marriage. So make sure there's like a buffer zone, I guess. And, establishing
out on a Friday and Saturday, you're hanging out with this person you just met.
That's when my clients ask me if they can date once they separate. I always explain to them that. And I'm like, if there's absolutely no way that you did anything sketchy during the marriage, then yeah, I still suggest you take time like mentally to work out any issues. But you can go start dating, just give it some time. But if there's any questionable relationships, even an emotional affair that you might have engaged in that your other spouse doesn't know about, I typically say just hold off until we get some things resolved first.
Yeah. And then one bit that a whole nother family law uncorked segment can sometimes bring in alienation of affection with the third party and what kind of proof they might have and this and that. So that's something else to consider. Again, that's why it's so important to speak with an attorney and find out, what you're up against or what you should and shouldn't do. And we get it. We can sit here and talk about what you should and shouldn't do, black and white, but and emotions run high, endorphins kick in and logic goes out the window, the whole love drug, and lust is probably a larger part of that. But it's very important, because one small decision can really kind of screw you over, for lack of a better word, if you're the one that's doing the cheating.
I remembered one more. There's people who will make their Match.com profiles during their marriage. And it's easy to get those too. So, avoid dating apps and that if you're still together and not separated. That's going to show us that you've been looking for an affair and there might be one out there.
Yeah, I think that was one of the stats that we talked about on the social media podcast episode, was about that Match.com was the #1 dating profile site that divorce attorneys use in cases. So, like you guys said, it can be found. It may not always be the easiest, but it doesn't really ever go away. So just be mindful of all of that and make good choices, folks.
Yeah, you decided to be married, so take care of that first. For sure.
Absolutely. Well, if, as always, anyone watching, if you ever have any questions or you suspect that your spouse might be having an affair and you have questions around that, and to get more specifics into your situation about what you should or shouldn't do, please give us a call. To the opposite end of that, if you yourself are the one that are having the affair, same thing. Make sure you know your legal rights and options, how this could affect things, and help develop a plan for either side of that for moving forward, because either way, something's got to happen, whether you work on the marriage, whether you separate and move forward or whatnot, something's got to happen there. So please don't hesitate to give us a call. You can reach out to us, 919-719-3470, right here on Facebook or any other of our social avenues. We'd be happy to talk to you and see how we can help. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a good rest of your Friday, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you. Have a good day.